97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for March 7th, 2025. Thank you for being here with me. I feel like I got a pretty darn good show ahead for everyone. I did a lot of reading last night. I did a lot of stat looking last night. And I am going to go deep into Juan Soto and why the Mets decided to pay him more than Shohei Ohtani. Because we talked about Shohei Ohtani last night and how Dodgers originally signed him to pay him for both the pitching and the hitting. But we'll talk about Juan Soto a little bit because there's a clip I'm going to play from you from a spring training game of him playing defense. I'm not going to argue that he's a bad hitter or anything because he's a great hitter. It's all about his defense. So we'll talk about that. Also, I want to get back into that UFL players story that Chris and I talked about. They aren't happy that the UFL threatened to release them if they didn't participate in the media days. So we'll talk about that. And then at the end of the show, we are going to just do some random news, which is something that I like to do on Fridays. The random news is always fun. And McDonald's has been dethroned as the world's largest fast food chain. And I'll tell you why and who did it. I'll tell you who did it, not why. But also and then the only show in town, I should say, that's going to give you airline updates in San Diego periodically here on the Skraby Show. I'll get all of that at the end. But first, I want to rant a little bit about daylight savings time. Like I'm one of those people that every time the time change comes around, I say, I thought we got rid of that. But I know that there's reasons for it. I'm not gonna get into that. But I really enjoy when we go into the winter time of things because I do like it when it gets dark early. It starts feeling like the holidays. It's cold out there. But I think my favorite one, even though I'm losing an hour of sleep, my favorite one most definitely is the one that's in spring because that means baseball's here. That means that the sun is going to stay out later. Like right now, it's 6:03, and I still, behind me in the window, have just a little bit of sunlight left. And just maybe 2 months ago, it was pitch black. And the one reason I love the spring forward is because you get to play more golf. Throughout the summer, I'm a huge twilight golfer, meaning I go late in the day so that I don't have to pay the full price to play the course. I'm a massive twilight golfer. I'm always looking for twilight deals. If it's like 3 p.m., on a Saturday, I'll look and see what's around me because you could probably play until about 8 p.m. and you'll get half off sometimes. And that's my biggest reason for loving the spring forward is because I get to play golf more and more and more throughout the summer and spring and fall and everything. But I do like the spring forward just because it makes you feel like a little bit better. It makes you feel like you're getting into the bulk of the year. I'm always like kind of weirded out. Maybe weirded out isn't the word, or phrase. I'm kind of weirded out in the new year. It's like, oh man, like you get out of the holidays, you had all this time off, you saw a lot of family, you took a vacation or whatever, and then you're back to work, you're back to regular life. And January, the first part of January for me is always kind of weird. But once you get to spring forward, that means we're going to be talking Padres, and we're talking Padres opening day coming up here really soon. It's the spring forward. The only downfall, that hour of sleep you lose. So I'm sure everybody's with me here. I'm sure everybody is with me here. Gonzo says fall time sucks because you go to work in the dark, come home in the dark. All right, that is bad. KG says spring forward is terrible for early morning workers. I can co-sign that. Before I got over here on 97.3 The Fan, I was working for another radio station in town on a morning show for like 2.5 years or so. And I remember the spring forward being brutal just because I was already getting up every day at about 3:45, and when you get up at 3:45, I don't care who you are or what kind of job you do. I'm sure the morning guys talk about this all the time. no one is meant to be up at 3:45 in the morning. And so that part was rough. That part didn't help. And I'm, glad I do not have to deal with the early morning schedule with the morning show. I'm tired just thinking about it. Brandon says, "Do you cancel golf days before because of the rain?" Brandon knows what he's doing here. And no, I do not cancel golf days before I know if it's going to rain or not. That's crazy. It is insane. Katrina says, "I have to take my dad to radiation treatments at 6 a.m. every morning." That is early. And it's very nice of you to take your dad to radiation treatments, but 6 a.m. for that, that is early. Gonzo, Mission Bay Golf Club has lights. Yes, I've played Mission Bay many a times before, and Mission Bay's fun. It's a little too pricey for me right now. Like a little too pricey for what you're getting. It's not like I know golf courses all over town and all over the country are raising their prices, but I feel like Mission Bay shouldn't be something that I have to think twice about playing. It should be something I'm like, yeah, okay, I can play for that rate, but not for, I actually don't even know what it is right now. But last time I went, I paid a rate I did not want to play. Let's see. David says, "I love daylight savings time. It means I can spend more time with my kids outside after school, and he gets to enjoy the daylight more." That's a good one. I didn't even think about that. You do get to hang out with your kids and play in the backyard and all that stuff. Paul says, "I love it because I work at UPS." Okay. I've met a lot of UPS and FedEx people as of late. Clay says, "I do like the later sunset times, but I do not like the position of the sun in the early morning when driving." That's a specific thing, but I can understand that, Clay, because sometimes when I'm driving home during the summer, there's actually like when I get off work and let's just say it's a 6:40 home game for the Padres. So we're done at like 5:35. I stick around until about 6:10 getting things done. And then I'll end up making my way home. And there's this one street where I turn down. It's a long street. And so I turn down the street, and during the summer, the sun is lined up perfectly with this street, and it's going down, so it's right in my face the entire way. So I understand it. Clay. It's good stuff. Andy says, "Wasn't it $17 with a resident card for Mission Bay?" I am not a resident, unfortunately. I used to be a resident, but they're very strict about resident things here in San Diego. Because if you're a resident of the city of San Diego, you could play Torrey Pines for cheaper than what the tourists pay. And if you live in Encinitas, you also have to pay what the tourists pay. But if you live in the San Diego city limits, you get some good deals around town. But yeah, that's much more comments on the daylight savings time than I actually thought. So thank you everybody for giving your thoughts there. Now let's get into some sports. And this is, I guess, off the field sports. But LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith have a very weird relationship. And their relationship is taking a turn for the worse each and every day. LeBron doesn't like that. Stephen A. has talked about Bronny in the past and talked about how Bronny is maybe not ready for the NBA. Honestly, all truthful things that Stephen A. has really said, but LeBron has not been happy about this apparently. And I guess there's been, some messages sent Stephen A.'s way from his people saying you could stop talking about Bronny like that. Well, last night at the Lakers game against the Knicks, LeBron came over to Stephen A. Smith and he approached him at some point during the game to kind of have a chat with him, have a couple words with him. And here is what Stephen A. Smith had to say about the situation. And it's kind of long, but we have to hear it. We have to hear most of it.
That was LeBron James coming up to me unexpectedly, I might add, to confront me about making sure that I mind what I say about his son. Can't repeat the words because they ain't suited for FCC airwaves. That's what he was doing. And I thought long and hard about this over the last few hours because I had no intentions, Molly, of talking about this at all.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it was a one-on-one, I wouldn't say a conversation, but it was a one-on-one confrontation. But then I wake up and everybody from ESPN and my agent and everybody else were sending me that this thing had gone viral. And so ultimately it was unavoidable. And that is why I have to discuss it now. That wasn't a basketball player confronting me. That was a parent. That was a father. And I can't sit here and be angry or feel slighted by LeBron James in any way in that regard. By all accounts, he's obviously a wonderful family man and a wonderful father who cares very, very deeply about his son. And based on some of the comments that he had heard, or shall I say, I think he thought he heard, he clearly took exception to some of the things that he heard me say, and he confronted me about it. For the record, his agent and friend, Rich Paul, has my number. Maverick Carter, who works under him, has my number. LeBron James knows how to get in contact with me if he wanted to. He never called, because had he called and wanted to talk to me, I would have accepted that call. Had he wanted to see me, I would have flown out and I would have seen him and I would have had a conversation man to man. But that is not what he elected to do. Instead, he elected to confront me while I was sitting courtside. Ari Emanuel, the head of William Morris Endeavor, one of the agencies that represents me, along with Larry David, was sitting courtside. I was with them for the game.
All right, so you kind of get the gist of everything, and LeBron approached him at the game. And I know that people don't like Stephen A. And I don't necessarily like Stephen A. Smith and everything that he says, because some of the stuff I think he says just for clicks and all that stuff. But I will say this about Stephen A. Smith, and it's refreshing to me that there is a sports media person out there that is at the level of Stephen A. Smith that is not afraid to take on tough topics that are going to get pushback from the people you're talking about. And I can appreciate that, because it's not easy. I'm not someone who likes to talk bad about people, but it's not easy for me to be like, yeah, Jason Hayward, he's terrible, get him off the team. But Stephen A. said in a different part of that, he's paid to call it like he is. And I'm not necessarily on Stephen A.'s level where I'm paid to call it like it is, but I am here so that I can share my thoughts on what I see. And it's not always easy to say those things. But Stephen A. is a national host, and I think that he has a point here. I think that he has a point that LeBron James could have called him, or at least reach out to him and say that they needed to meet up. I think that LeBron could have, there was plenty of time for LeBron to reach out and try and talk this through. I don't think being at a game and confronting him on the sidelines is the best thing for LeBron to do, because we saw the video, because a fan saw the interaction, put up that video on Twitter. That's not something that you really want to put up, because now Stephen A. has to talk about it. You know, I would honestly believe that if Stephen A. had a conversation with LeBron James about what is bothering LeBron, then I honestly believe that he would keep that between them if that's what they said they were going to do. I mean, certain parts he would say, but I do believe that Stephen A. is a guy who will listen when he's being confronted. I've actually met Stephen A. couple times. Obviously don't know him that well. Number one, Stephen A. is extremely tall, or not extremely tall, but he's a lot taller than you think he is. He's like 6'3" or 6'4". I was stunned when I walked up to him, and I was looking up at him, and I'm 6 feet tall. But I think that Stephen A. is mostly a truthful radio host, outside of the things we clearly know that he's saying just to get attention. I'm not a fan of making a bigger scene out of it. LeBron does care a lot about his son, Bronny, and his family, which is, yes, I never question that. But when you do this, you now create questions. Oh, well, look, LeBron and Stephen A are fighting on the sideline over Bronny, and then Bronny gets brought into it. I would think that you can't bring this stuff publicly because it just causes a bigger problem. And in the end, I know that LeBron is much more famous than I will ever be, but I know that he knows how to deal with being famous. But he also has to know that this is going to just open more cans of worms than anything else. And it's going to get back to Bronny at some point. Prolific says, why would he want to discuss that privately when Stephen A. Smith talked about his son publicly? His son is an NBA player. And Stephen A. was talking in the regards of talking about an NBA player and how he's developing in the league. That, I think, is fair. I don't think that Stephen A. has ever said anything unfair about Bronny James, because it's, Bronny knew what he was getting into when he entered that draft and he was selected in the first round. These things aren't like when you're a player and when you're an NBA player and you are LeBron James' son, you're going to get attention. It just happens all the time. So I have no issues with Stephen A. I have no issues with Stephen A. bringing up things about Bronny on his shows. I really agree. Let me see. The borders of Skrabistan will eclipse the fame of LeBron. I don't know about that. J-Mac can't take criticism about his son in the NBA. You don't see Vlad going after critics of Vlad Jr. I also think that Vlad Jr. has kind of proven that he is major league quality. He's a major league quality hitter and player. And Bronny maybe one day, but he's not right now. And Stephen A. has said that. So in this case, in this very specific case of LeBron coming up to Stephen A. at the game to talk to him about this, I think that LeBron made a mistake on that. I think that he should have probably done this behind closed doors because of the fanfare that it would get. And Nick E2 said, ironically, LeBron just put more spotlight on him and his son doing this. Yes, I agree with that. It was an unplanned meeting, Travis Scott W. is saying, but still, it doesn't matter if it's unplanned. LeBron knows what he's doing. Even if it was unplanned and he walked up there. There's been weeks and maybe even a month since all of this first came up. That's plenty of time to talk to Stephen A. if you really need to. Prolific. I don't have issues with LeBron James defending his son or whatever the case may be publicly, just like Stephen A. Smith does things publicly. Edward, Bronny will be solid one day. I don't disagree with that. I mean, I've seen him play, and he needs to develop, but he's not terrible. I don't know that he's a first round pick, but I can't say that he's not an NBA player either. Brandon says, Iron Eagle coming after Skraby for the Noah Eagle slander. You know what? I've been thinking about that lately. We're going to talk about that when we get back here on 97.3 The Show and the Skraby Show. What have I been thinking about with my Iron Eagle, Noah Eagle slander? I'll tell you next.
The Padres
You know who people need to leave alone right now? Brock Purdy. Leave Brock Purdy alone. Everybody's just crushing him. The guy has said nothing about anything. And it's just rumors. Well, Brock Purdy was rumored to have turned down $45 million a year. Oh, he's an idiot. Leave Brock Purdy alone. Let him do. He's a nice guy. He doesn't do anything wrong. Don't hate on him. Come on, people. I will stand up for my Brock Purdy. I will stand up for my 49er quarterback. Now, do I think they should pay him $65 million a year? No. Nope, I don't think they should pay him $65 million a year. We've been talking about LeBron James, Stephen A. Smith, Bronny. I should also mention that the Padres game today was rained out, and they played 2 innings. Kyle Hart was on the mound. He had a good outing, but they canceled the game, so there's not much to talk about today in that department. So we're going to get back to this topic. And I'm seeing on the chat, like, Stephen A should keep Bronny's name out of his mouth, and you should never talk bad about someone's son like that. Why are we shielding Bronny from this stuff? He wants to be an NBA player. He has to take the criticism. He has to. Why are we treating him different? Anybody else, we would be crushing without even thinking twice about. Markelle Fultz, number 1 overall pick years ago, just continue to crush him all the time because he couldn't shoot free throws. Ben Simmons, crush him all the time. Zion Williamson, I crush all the time. People are always talking bad about players and saying things about players, but all of a sudden something said about Bronny and it's over the line. This dude is an NBA player. Like, we can't keep holding his hand forever. And I'm not saying that Bronny is being asked for someone to hold his hand. I'm not saying that at all. I actually don't. I think Bronny's doing it right. Bronny's just staying quiet about all of this. You never see Bronny on social media saying stuff that to address comments. He's doing it right. And that tells me that he actually does care about his career. It tells me that he does care what he's doing. I like Bronny. I think he has a good head on his shoulders. It's not easy to be LeBron James' son. But when you get drafted in the first round and you're not ready to be drafted in the first round, people are going to talk. People are absolutely going to have opinions about that because there are so many other players in this world that could have been drafted in his spot. And they maybe even were able to play now. Bronny is a work in progress, and there's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone is LeBron James, not even his son. That's, I think, where we're going a little too far. Is just because he's LeBron's son, we're gonna protect him, or no one can say anything about him? I don't get that. I'm not a Stephen A. Smith guy all the time. Most of the time, I'm not. But I do think that here, Stephen A. Smith is being respectful. He's just calling out what is happening on the court. And LeBron doesn't like it, which I think is normal. If LeBron wasn't mad, that might be a little weird. But LeBron is mad, and he wants to defend his son. And I love that. This has nothing to do with their relationship. It has everything to do with basketball. And I just think that people are, I think there's I don't want to say, that was my mouth. I don't want to say people are soft because that's too far. I do want to say that we have to stop treating people different just because of some factor to them. You know, when I was coming up in radio, no one cared about me at all. It was every person for themselves. I started as an unpaid intern with 4 other interns, and I worked my butt off, and I just kept my head down and keep doing things. It was, you know, if I was someone who didn't really deserve to be in that position and I was doing bad at my job, or I was just, you know, kind of going through the motions, then yes, I could be crushed for it. But no one really cared about me because I was just some kid. And I think that it's we can't be treating like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm stumbling over my words because I'm now thinking of different things and I'm getting all confused in my head. But I think that if let's go to the Noah Eagle thing. We'll go to Noah Eagle because Brandon brought it up. Noah Eagle is Ian Eagle's son. And Noah Eagle is getting a lot of great jobs. And he's very young. I think he's in his early 20s. I'm going to check right now because 28. Okay, so 28. 28-year-olds don't really get the foot in the door that he did. And I'm not saying that he's not worthy of that position. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it because he's good. It makes it a lot easier for people because he's good and you can listen to him and it's not like it's that big of a deal at all. You think he's been doing this for years and he has, and his dad has, but like the reason that I don't have anything against No Eagle, but I do have things against people who don't really recognize that they had an upper hand on things. It's the truth. Noah Eagle was able to work his way up faster than a lot of people because he had a foot in the door. That's fine. I'm okay with that. Like, I just want people to recognize it. If they're out there, oh, I worked my way up through all of this. No, I mean, originally you probably got an interview because of your last name and who you know and all that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. You have to take advantage of what is given to you to succeed. And if he didn't take advantage of that, then that would be pretty dumb. He has to. I don't blame him or anything like that for taking these jobs. He's going to take the jobs. He should take the jobs. Like I saw an interview with Patrick Schwarzenegger last week or 2 weeks ago. He's in White Lotus. And he said he wishes his last name wasn't Schwarzenegger. And I understand a little bit why he said that. And the reason is because he wants people to think that he himself is a good actor and he's worked for that acting or worked to become that good of an actor and worked for these jobs. I don't think it's a bad thing that his dad's Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he talked about how he worked years going to acting school and perfecting his craft. Well, yeah, like you went to acting school because your dad's Arnold Schwarzenegger. So why don't you just recognize that? There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it at all. I feel like I'm going down a rabbit hole I'm never going to get out of. KG says, Skraby, it's literally like when the Orioles called up Holiday last season. First round pick, highest rated prospect in the league, and woefully underperformed. Yeah. And we still hear about Jackson Holiday just because his name is Holiday. He's on the list. A couple weeks ago, The Athletic put out an article of a starting lineup for best players under 25, and he's in the starting lineup. You can't find one other second baseman that's better than Jackson Holiday under 25? I got to think there's someone out there that's better than Jackson Holiday. He hasn't shown anything yet. Jax, I think, is talking about Schwarzenegger, saying he doesn't want his last name. Easy to say after getting the part. It is easy to say. It is easy to say. I probably went too far off of where I really wanted to go with that, but there was some good commentary on the chat. Got some text messages, so want to talk about that a little bit more. But I don't have an issue with people getting ahead because of who they know. Just take advantage of it. That's all I want for these people, is use what's been given to you and capitalize. Because, hey, I would have really, really, really loved to get into radio and start as a host. I would have loved that. Would I have been ready? No, I would not have been ready. I wouldn't. In fact, it would have been terrible. But I would have, flipped through or done backflips to get a host job, my first job in radio. But I like where my path went. The reason that I'm talking to you right now is because I produced for the last 7 years, and I learned about radio, and I learned about topic selection. I learned about topic building and all that stuff. And I worked for about the first 2 years, literally making no money. So if I was a host, I would be making money right out the gate. There is something else too. There are, pro athletes sometimes that no one really knows about, but they're all of a sudden at the head of the line because they played 3 games in the NFL or something. I don't know, or Major League Baseball. I think that people sometimes just get things handed to them, and if you're not accepting of them, then I have a problem with that. Okay, I feel like I'm just going to Mashuti, I think that's how you say it. Just don't deny you get some help along the way. I agree with that. And it's not like they need to come out and say, "Hey everybody, I got help along the way. I just needed everybody to know." In an interview, say it or ask them to ask you so that you can say it. But the problem with nepotism is special treatment. If you get the opportunity because of it, everything is fine. But when you get special treatment for underperforming, there is a problem. KG making some good points tonight. All right, I'm going to move off of this because I probably went too far, like I said. When we get back, let's talk about Juan Soto's defense. How about that? Juan Soto's defense is going to be the topic of our next segment, and we also have a daily gripe. So one more segment for the week on 97.3 The Fan and the Skraby Show.
Ben and Woods on the
Final segment here on the Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. Thank you for joining me. Did not expect to go all that time about Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James, but feel like there was some good conversation, I guess, if I say so myself. Last thing, I was asked on Twitter, what's your background like? Did you have anything that helped you along the way? And I will say I grew up in a very good family. I had all the support I needed. I really did. And I'm very fortunate for that. And I take advantage of it all the time because I realize that not everyone is able to come from a background like mine. And by no means is my family rich. But, it was something growing up. We got to do cool things. I got to go to the 49ers games all the time. My grandpa flew me in his plane. That all stopped when I was like 8 years old because planes are expensive. But I'm definitely fortunate in my life. I've had great family and people to help me along the way, especially my parents and my grandpa. When I was a drunk, they took me in and they helped me. And they made me promise that you just keep working hard, keep your head down, be good, and that will make us happy. And so I've done it ever since then. Ever since then, I have been trying to take advantage of it. What is it called? Seize the day? Is it Carpe Diem? I don't know. I don't know if it's Carpe Diem. Maybe not. All right. Not real quick. Juan Soto. He is with the Mets now. I'm trying to get the video. There we go. He's with the Mets now. And I believe this was last night. And the Mets were playing the Astros in spring training. And Cabrera is at the plate. Or I'm sorry, Hamilton's at the plate. And Juan Soto's in right field. Here it goes.
He smokes that one to right field. Over the head of Soto. He can't make the play. And coming around is Singleton. Another run scored by the Astros.
All right, so I'm going to lower this and describe it. So a line drive, I mean, this was a hard hit ball to right field. Went over Juan Soto's head. He got a bad first back step, went off his glove, and it scored a couple runs. Now, Juan Soto is, and one of the Yankees fans put on the Twitter post, OMG, Juan Soto with the catch of the year, which I think is kind of funny. But Juan Soto is being paid by the Mets to be a great overall player, or at least I think that's what they're paying him for. I mean, the reason I played that is because that's the reason I'm going into this right now. What I saw last night spurred me into looking for some more stuff. But I did a deep dive into his defense this morning, and we talked about Ohtani getting paid $700 million to DH and pitch. His timetables moved back a bit, so he still has lots of time to pitch. But we did bring it up last night, so it's kind of an extension of the conversation from last night. Juan Soto is getting paid $61.875 million this year to play for the Mets, which makes him the highest paid player in the outfield, and he's the highest paid player in the outfield by $21 million over Aaron Judge. And when he was in San Diego, I know that we saw him play some bad defense from time to time, and the one thing I get confused about all the time is Juan Soto he's been nominated for Gold Gloves over the years. And I don't really understand it because his defense has never really been that good. Juan Soto last year for the Yankees had a -5 outs above average, which is really, really bad. And that's among all outfielders or right fielders. I'm sorry, -5 outs above average last season, which makes him the 37th best qualified right fielder is what I was trying to say last year. 37th. Now, he was last year, I looked it up. He was a finalist for the Gold Glove. Wilyer Abreu from the Red Sox won. But he had a -5 outs above average. Now, I don't know if the AL was really that bad, but I have a hard time thinking that -5 outs above average is Gold Glove worthy. And if you want to go even further, among all qualified outfielders in Major League Baseball last year. He ranked 103rd. He's below 100. So I don't know what the money is going to here other than for his offense. Did the Mets and Steve Cohen just say, hey, I know he plays questionable defense, but we're willing to look past it? To put a little perspective to it, I think Juan Soto probably should have been paid around where Aaron Judge is right now, which is $40 million, because Aaron Judge ranked 106th out of all outfielders in baseball last year with a -6 out above average. So he's below Juan Soto. And he's getting paid a heck of a lot less than Juan Soto. And Aaron Judge has been a 2-time MVP. He's had 3 straight seasons with an OPS over 1,000 or 1.000. He can hit for average. 2 of the last 3 years, he's finished with the season over 300 average. 2 of the last 3 years, he's had over 100 RBIs. And so I got to ask, where in the world is that money going? I'm not seeing it on the defensive side. So if you're paying him to be a glorified DH that plays right field, you're paying him $21 million more than Aaron Judge, who has 2 MVPs under his belt. Like, all over sports, players are getting more money, which I agree with, and I think that they should get more money, but I think everyone should be paid what they are worth. And I know if Tony was here right now, he'd be like, you're worth as much as someone's willing to pay you. I get it. Juan Soto also said the Mets didn't have the highest bid. There was another team that gave him more money, but he turned him down, which I don't necessarily believe. But I think they gave a contract, the Mets, to a player that they know and all of us know is a future Hall of Famer, and they're banking on him being incredible at the plate. Incredible at the plate. I'm just not sure where that extra $21.875 million goes in Juan Soto's contract. He has an opt-out in like 5 seasons or something like that. And if he's doing really well, then he can renegotiate. But I don't see where this is smart. I don't think that one player can change the entire outlook of your team. Now, Juan Soto will change a lot, but in baseball, it's not going to change every single thing about your team. It's just not going to happen. So his defense, a lot to be desired. And I saw that clip last night. You can go and Google it. Mets, Astros, Juan Soto. You'll find it. I'm seeing overpay on the chat. Overpay is true. And it seems like there's been some overpaying as of late. Yamamoto may be an overpay. We don't know yet. It's too early. Way too early. So those are some Juan Soto thoughts. Now, quickly, I wanted to tell you we're coming to the end of the show. I'm practicing delivering what I teased to you about what I'm going to talk about. And I said, and this is not that important, but McDonald's is no longer the largest restaurant chain in the world. Something called Mishu Bingchang is a Chinese bubble tea and ice cream chain with more than 45,000 restaurants worldwide as of September 2024, while the number of McDonald's restaurants all over the world is around 41,800. It's this Asian-based fast food chain is known for selling soft serve ice cream cones and drinks. It has a huge number of locations, but 90% of them are in China. There are also other outlets in Indonesia, Vietnam, and Malaysia, but there are no locations in the United States. But growing up, I never thought anyone would ever come close to taking over McDonald's or overtaking, I should say. Overtaking McDonald's as the biggest restaurant in the world. I have been to some of the, when I lived in San Francisco, there was a bunch of bubble tea places up there, and bubble tea is very good. But 45,000 stores for Mishu Bingchang. I'm probably saying that wrong. That's a lot of stores. But 90% of them in China? Man, that's like Starbucks here, one on every corner. So there's the McDonald's story. Paid that one off. All right. Next one I need to pay off because this is the only show in town that you're going to get airline news periodically. And if you ever wanted to go to Latin America or if you wanted to go to Panama, you can now go nonstop. Copa Airlines is going to launch direct flights from San Diego to Panama City starting June 25th of this year. This is a huge milestone for them because they're planning on using San Diego as a big hub for their airline to get passengers to reach 86 destinations across 32 countries. And they already have the flight time and everything. The nonstop flights are going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Departing from Panama City at 1:16 p.m., arriving 6:15 p.m. Departing from San Diego at 9 p.m., arriving in Panama City at 5:20. So San Diego's airport is growing a little bit. San Diego airport's growing a little bit faster than I think we all need it to grow because it's running out of space. And they're continuing to try to shove more in there. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's money for the city. And it brings tourism in and all that stuff. So there you go. Your periodic airline update on the Skraby Show.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
Okay, time for me to rant again. This is like one of the first things that I put into my doc today, so it's I'm gonna stick with it. But there's a guy on Twitter named @BossSportsGordo. He's a Red Sox reporter writer, and he tweeted this: Tristan Casas isn't doing too hot. Alex Cora, quote, he's MIA. I don't know if that's Miami or missing in action. He hasn't answered my texts. Vaughn told me they're roommates. That's not looking good. He's alive, but ... end quote. And then under that tweet, because when I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, what happened to Tristan Casas? Is he going through something? Is he in trouble? Is he sick? Is he dying? I don't know. So he put under the reply, for those who need context, Tristan Casas was sent home this week with the illness that's been going around. Well, fellow Twitter people got him. They said, you know what you're doing. You are reporting false news. We are reporting you for reporting false news because this is exactly what this kid was doing. He's also one of those guys who takes articles, puts up his own little picture, and then under everything says via @AlexFire. I'm not a fan of that. Please be more clear when you're tweeting things if you're a reporter. There you go. All right, that was a lot of ranting. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us this week. Back on Monday on 97.3 The Fan. Good night, everybody.